The Great Hall of Nexus Prime stretched out before Jake Morrison like a metal canyon, filled with the strangest collection of beings he had ever seen. The human ambassador stood alone at the center of the circular chamber, while 47 different alien species watched him from their elevated seats. Some had scales that glittered under the artificial lights. Others floated in tanks of glowing liquid. A few looked almost human except for their blue skin or extra arms. All of them were staring at him with expressions he could not read. Jake adjusted his formal Earth uniform and looked up at the massive viewing screen that showed his home planet spinning slowly in space. Blue and green and beautiful. Soon it would be farther away than ever before. He had known this moment would come when he stepped into the transport 3 days ago. The vote had already been decided in secret meetings he was not allowed to attend. High Counselor Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire rose from his throne-like chair. The alien looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird, with bright yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. His voice echoed through speakers built into the walls. Ambassador Morrison, you stand before this council to hear the judgment of the Galactic Confederation. Humanity has been found guilty of violations that threaten the peace of known space. The charges came one after another like bullets from a gun. Humans had built colonies beyond their assigned boundaries. They had created military ships without proper approval. They had ignored trade regulations and territorial agreements. They had shown aggression toward peaceful species who only wanted to be left alone. Each accusation hit Jake like a physical blow, but he kept his face calm and his hands steady. The humans spread too fast, said the representative from the crystal-like Threnody race, her voice sounding like wind chimes in a storm. They take what they want without asking permission. They make weapons when they should make friends. Jake wanted to laugh at that. The Threnody had been fighting border wars with 3 different species when humans first made contact with the Council 50 years ago. But he said nothing. He had been ordered to stay quiet and listen. Earth's leaders hoped that showing respect might make the punishment less severe. The Corthan Collective spoke next through their hive mind representative. Humans do not follow established procedures. They act without consulting proper authorities. They endanger the stability that has kept this galaxy peaceful for thousands of years. More voices joined the attack. The slug-like gastropods complained that human traders were too aggressive in business dealings. The energy beings called the Lumina claimed that human emotions were too violent and unpredictable. Even species that Jake had never heard of stood up to condemn his people. From the gallery above, Captain Lisa Bradley watched the proceedings with growing anger. She wore the dark blue uniform of the Earth Defense Force, and her hand kept moving toward the empty holster where her sidearm would normally rest. No weapons were allowed in the council chambers. She wished they were. These aliens talked about human aggression as if it were a disease, but they had no problem ganging up on a single species when it suited their purposes. Beside her sat Commander Rick Hayes, head of Earth's Intelligence Division. His face showed nothing, but Lisa knew he was memorizing every detail of the chamber's layout and security measures. Rick had been a spy for 20 years, and old habits never died. His fingers tapped a slow rhythm on his knee that Lisa recognized as Morse code. He was spelling out the same word over and over. Prepared. The third human in the gallery was Dr. Amy Peterson, a woman whose brilliant mind had already unlocked dozens of alien technologies for Earth's benefit. She watched the proceedings with scientific curiosity, taking notes on a small device hidden in her sleeve. Amy had been studying captured council technology for years, and she was beginning to understand how their ships and weapons worked. More importantly, she was starting to see their weaknesses. High Counselor Vextar called for the final vote. One by one, each species declared their position. The Zephyrians voted for banishment. The Threnody agreed. The Corthan Collective sided with the majority. Even the species that had seemed friendly to humans in the past now turned against them. The fear in their voices was clear. They were afraid that associating with humans would make them targets too. Jake Morrison listened to each vote with growing understanding. This was not about human crimes or violations of council law. This was about fear. The established powers of the galaxy saw humanity's rapid growth and felt threatened. Humans learned too quickly, adapted too fast, and refused to accept that things had to stay the same forever. In a galaxy where some species had not changed their ways for millions of years, humanity's constant evolution was terrifying. The final tally was devastating. 45 species voted for immediate banishment. Only 2 abstained. And those were small, powerless races that barely had voices in the council anyway. No one voted to support humanity. The sentence is exile beyond the Outer Rim territories, Vextar announced with obvious satisfaction. All human colonies within council space must be abandoned within one standard solar cycle. All trade agreements are hereby terminated. All diplomatic privileges are revoked. Humanity is no longer welcome in civilized space. Jake Morrison stepped forward to the speaker's platform. The chamber fell silent. He looked around at all the alien faces watching him, and for the first time since the trial began, he smiled. "You think you are punishing us," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "You believe that sending us away will solve your problems. But you are making the biggest mistake in the history of this galaxy." Murmurs of confusion rippled through the assembled representatives. Jake's smile grew wider. "Humans learn from every experience, even the bad ones. We grow stronger when we face challenges. You are not destroying us. You are freeing us from your rules and your limitations. You are giving us the chance to become something greater than you can imagine." He turned to face High Counselor Vextar directly. "When we meet again, and we will meet again, you will discover what humans can accomplish when they are not held back by your council's fears and restrictions. You will regret this decision for the rest of your lives." The silence in the chamber was complete. Jake Morrison walked toward the exit with his head held high. In the gallery, Lisa Bradley, Rick Hayes, and Amy Peterson followed him out. None of them looked back at the alien representatives who were already beginning to whisper nervously among themselves. Outside the chamber, the four humans met in a small waiting room. Jake sat down heavily in a chair and finally let his calm mask slip. "Well, that went about as badly as expected," he said. Rick Hayes checked his watch. "The transport ships start loading in 6 hours. We have a lot of work to do before then." Amy Peterson pulled out her hidden device and showed them the readings she had taken during the trial. "I recorded energy signatures from every species' technology. Their shields, their communication systems, their life support. Everything we need to know about their capabilities." Lisa Bradley cracked her knuckles. "So what's the plan?" Jake Morrison looked at his three companions and felt something he had not expected to feel after such a devastating defeat. He felt hope. "The plan is simple. We take our people beyond the Outer Rim like they ordered. We build something new out there, and when we come back, we make sure no one ever treats humanity like this again." The four humans left Nexus Prime that day with their heads held high. Behind them, the council celebrated what they thought was a great victory. They had no idea that they had just created their own worst nightmare. In trying to destroy humanity's future, they had guaranteed that humanity would forge a destiny greater than any of them could comprehend. The great fleet stretched across space like a river of lights against the darkness. Admiral Ben Cooper stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching thousands of ships moving together toward the unknown regions beyond the Outer Rim. Transport vessels carried millions of people and their belongings. Cargo ships held everything from factory equipment to children's toys. Military escorts surrounded the civilian ships like protective shepherds guarding their flock. 6 months had passed since the Council's judgment, and the exodus was finally underway. Ben had commanded fleets before, but nothing like this. Every ship represented families torn from their homes, dreams interrupted, and lives changed forever. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him like gravity from a massive planet. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from the Outer Scouts," said his communications officer. Lieutenant Sam Torres was young but reliable, and his voice carried bad news. The Meridian convoy lost 3 ships in that cosmic storm near Sector 7. The Carpenter family transport suffered engine failure and had to be abandoned. Ben closed his eyes for a moment. More lives lost to this forced journey into the unknown. Send rescue ships to pick up survivors from the Carpenter vessel. Route the remaining convoys around Sector 7. The journey had been brutal from the beginning. The Council had given humanity 1 solar cycle to abandon all colonies in civilized space, but they had not provided safe passage or navigation data for the dangerous regions beyond the Outer Rim. Every day brought new challenges: gravitational anomalies that could tear ships apart, radiation storms that fried electronic systems, uncharted asteroid fields that appeared without warning. 300 light-years ahead of the main fleet, Commander Katie Sullivan piloted her reconnaissance ship through a massive nebula that glowed with strange colors. The New Horizon was one of Earth's fastest vessels, designed for long-range exploration and equipped with the best sensors available. Katie had volunteered for the dangerous job of finding safe routes through the unknown regions. "This is incredible," she whispered to her co-pilot. Ensign Chris Morgan was a young man fresh out of the academy, and his eyes were wide with amazement. The nebula around them pulsed with energy patterns unlike anything in Earth's databases. Streams of charged particles created aurora effects across their view screen. "I've never seen anything like this." Katie's instrument started beeping with urgent warnings. "Chris, look at these readings. The energy signatures are completely artificial. This isn't natural." Deep inside the nebula, massive structures floated in the cosmic dust like sleeping giants. They were clearly built by intelligent beings, but the design was unlike anything humans or council species had ever created. The structures were enormous, some larger than Earth's moon. Their surfaces were covered with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. "Commander, I'm detecting power sources inside those structures," Chris reported, his voice filled with excitement and fear. "The energy levels are off the charts. Whatever built these things had technology far beyond anything we've ever encountered." Katie made the decision that would change human history forever. "We're going aboard. Prepare a shuttle and full exploration gear." The shuttle approached the nearest structure through a docking bay that opened automatically as they approached. Inside, gravity generators still functioned after what must have been millions of years. The air was breathable, though stale. Emergency lighting activated as they walked through corridors wide enough for giants. The builders were huge, Chris observed, running his hands along walls covered with strange symbols, at least 12 feet tall, maybe more. They found vast chambers filled with dormant machinery, computer systems that hummed with quiet power, manufacturing facilities that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Most importantly, they discovered libraries of information stored in crystal matrices that seemed to respond to human touch. Katie activated her emergency beacon to call for backup, but she kept exploring. In what appeared to be a command center, she found star charts showing the entire galaxy from a perspective no living species had ever achieved. The builders had called themselves the architects, and they had vanished long before any current galactic civilization had evolved. 2 weeks later, Dr. Amy Peterson arrived with a full research team. Amy had been studying alien technology for years, but the architect systems made everything else look like primitive cave paintings. The manufacturing systems could create materials stronger than anything in Earth's periodic table. The energy generators tapped directly into quantum fluctuations, producing power that seemed to violate the laws of physics. "This is how we rebuild," Amy told Admiral Cooper during a video conference. "The architects left us a gift beyond imagination. With this technology, we can create ships and weapons that will make the Council's fleets look like toys." Meanwhile, on the newly established colony world of Haven, President Tony Martinez addressed the growing human settlements. Tony had been Earth's Secretary of State before the exile, and now he found himself leading an entire civilization in uncharted space. The responsibility was overwhelming, but he drew strength from seeing how humanity had come together in crisis. "We did not choose this path," he told the crowd of colonists gathered in the main square, "but we will walk it with dignity and purpose. The Council thought they were punishing us, but they have given us something precious. They have given us freedom from their rules and limitations." The crowd cheered, but Tony could see the worry in many faces. Food supplies were running low despite careful rationing. Some colonies were struggling with equipment failures in the harsh environments of unknown worlds. Children asked their parents when they could go home, not understanding that home no longer existed for humanity. General Frank Davis worked tirelessly to organize the military aspects of their new civilization. Frank was a career soldier who had fought in border conflicts before humanity joined the Council. Now he faced the challenge of protecting millions of civilians scattered across dozens of star systems with limited resources and no backup. "We can't fight the old way," he told his officers during a strategy meeting. "We don't have the numbers or the industrial base to match the Council's military might. We need to be smarter, faster, and more innovative than any enemy we might face." The architect technology offered solutions to problems Frank had never imagined possible. Manufacturing systems that could build entire starships in days instead of years. Communication networks that worked instantly across galactic distances. Transportation systems that seemed to bend space itself. Dr. Amy Peterson's research teams worked around the clock to understand and adapt the ancient technology. They discovered that the architects had faced their own extinction event millions of years ago, some kind of cosmic threat that had forced them to abandon the galaxy. Their technology was designed to be found and used by younger civilizations that might face similar challenges. It's like they knew we would need this someday. Amy explained to President Martinez during one of their regular briefings. The systems are almost too perfectly suited to our needs. They left us the tools to become something greater than we ever imagined possible. But Amy also found warnings in the architect databases, references to threats from beyond the galaxy. Entities that consumed entire civilizations and moved between galaxies like locusts seeking new crops. The architects had fled rather than fight, but their records suggested that running was only a temporary solution. As human colonies spread across dozens of star systems hidden within the nebula, Jake Morrison established the new diplomatic corps. His experience at the council trial had taught him valuable lessons about galactic politics. The strong survived while the weak were pushed aside. Respect came from power, not from good intentions or moral arguments. When we reveal ourselves again, Jake told his staff, humanity must speak from a position of strength. We cannot afford to be dismissed or ignored ever again. The architect technology was changing everything faster than anyone had expected. Human lifespans extended dramatically, thanks to medical advances that repaired cellular damage at the genetic level. Food production increased exponentially using matter synthesizers that created perfect nutrition from raw elements. Population centers grew as people lived longer and healthier lives than ever before. Admiral Cooper's shipyards began producing vessels unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that could appear and disappear instantly using architect transportation networks, weapons that channeled quantum energy into devastating beams of destruction. Defensive systems that made traditional shields obsolete. But the most important change was in humanity itself. The exile had burned away old divisions and petty conflicts. Former enemies worked together toward common goals. National boundaries became meaningless when survival required cooperation. Humanity was becoming something new, something stronger than the sum of its parts. Commander Katie Sullivan continued her exploration of architect facilities throughout the nebula. Each discovery revealed new wonders and new possibilities. Ancient factories that could reshape planets, defensive installations that could protect entire star systems, and always, the warnings about threats that came from the darkness between galaxies. President Martinez knew that 2 years had passed since humanity first discovered the architect ruins, and the transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Admiral Ben Cooper stood in the command center of his new flagship, watching construction crews put the finishing touches on the first vessels of the quantum fleet. These ships defied everything. The galaxy thought it knew about space travel and warfare. The new ships were sleek and elegant, built from materials that seemed to drink in starlight and reflect it back in rainbow patterns. They had no visible engines or weapon ports, yet they could cross the galaxy in minutes and deliver firepower that could crack planets. The architect technology had given humanity capabilities that bordered on magic. "Admiral, the test flight is ready to begin," reported Captain Julie Harris, commander of the prototype vessel Starfall. Her voice came through the quantum communication network that connected all human ships instantly across any distance. "All systems are showing green." Ben watched through his view screen as the Starfall simply vanished from normal space. One moment it was there, the next it was gone without even a flash of light. Seconds later it reappeared on the far side of the solar system, having traveled a distance that should have taken hours in mere heartbeats. "Perfect execution, Captain Harris. Welcome to the new age of human space travel." The implications were staggering. Human ships could now appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Traditional defensive strategies became useless when the enemy could strike from any direction at any time. The Council's massive fleets were built for battles between slow-moving vessels that followed predictable patterns. They would be helpless against enemies that could be everywhere and nowhere at once. Meanwhile, Colonel Steve Parker was preparing for humanity's first return to Council space in 2 years. His mission was reconnaissance and intelligence gathering, using the new cloaking technology that made human ships completely invisible to all known detection methods. Steve had volunteered for the dangerous assignment despite knowing that capture would mean certain death. His ship, the Shadow Runner, slipped through Council patrol networks like a ghost through walls. The cloaking system didn't just hide the ship from sensors. It seemed to bend reality itself around the vessel. Steve could fly within meters of Council ships without being detected. What he found in Council space was both encouraging and troubling. The alien civilizations had grown soft and complacent without humanity's competitive presence. Their military patrols were lazy and predictable. Their defensive installations were poorly maintained. Many species seemed to be suffering from economic problems as trade networks collapsed without human merchants to drive commerce. But there were also signs of growing unrest. Several member species were quietly questioning the Council's leadership. Border conflicts had increased dramatically without human peacekeepers to mediate disputes. Some regions of Council space were seeing open rebellion against central authority. Steve's most important discovery came when he infiltrated a secret Council meeting on the world of Kepler Prime. Hi. Counselor Vextar was meeting with military commanders from a dozen species, and their topic of discussion sent chills down Steve's spine. The humans must be found and eliminated before they can threaten us again, Vextar declared, his reptilian features twisted with hatred and fear. Our intelligence reports suggest they have not only survived their exile, but may actually be thriving. This cannot be allowed to continue. The assembled military leaders nodded in agreement. General Thekmore of the Korthan battle fleets presented reconnaissance data, showing increased activity in the Outer Rim regions. Ships had been detected entering and leaving areas that were supposed to be empty space. The Council was planning a massive military expedition to hunt down human survivors and finish what the exile had started. Steve recorded everything before slipping away undetected. The intelligence he brought back to Haven changed everything about humanity's timeline. They had hoped to remain hidden for another 5 years while building their strength. Now they had perhaps 6 months before Council fleets came looking for them. On Haven, Director Nina Roberts oversaw the massive industrial transformation that had turned the human colonies into the galaxy's most advanced manufacturing centers. Entire moons had been converted into automated factories using architect technology. Asteroid belts were systematically dismantled and reformed into raw materials for the growing human war machine. The scale of production was beyond anything the Council had ever achieved. A single human facility could now produce more advanced technology in a day than most Council worlds managed in a year. Ships, weapons, defensive systems, and support equipment rolled off the production lines in seemingly endless streams. But Nina's greatest achievement was not in military hardware. The architect biotechnology had solved humanity's most basic problems. Food synthesizers could create perfect nutrition from any organic matter. Medical systems could repair almost any injury or illness. Life extension treatments had already added decades to human lifespans while improving physical and mental capabilities. The human population was exploding as people lived longer and healthier lives than ever before. Colonies that had started with a few thousand refugees now housed millions of citizens. New settlements were being established at a rate that would have been impossible with traditional technology. Dr. Amy Peterson's research teams had unlocked secrets that the Council's greatest scientists had never even imagined. The architect databases contained millions of years of accumulated knowledge about physics, biology, chemistry, and technologies that seemed to border on the supernatural. Every day brought new breakthroughs that pushed humanity further ahead of their former oppressors. We're not just catching up to the Council's technology, Amy reported to President Martinez during their weekly briefing. We're leaping centuries ahead of them. The architects had solutions to problems we didn't even know existed. President Martinez listened to these reports with growing confidence and growing concern. The power humanity was gaining was intoxicating, but he remembered the lessons of Earth's history. Great power had corrupted many civilizations before. He was determined that humanity would use their advantages wisely. Power without wisdom is just another form of destruction, he told his cabinet during a strategy meeting. We must be better than those who exiled us, not just stronger. General Frank Davis was implementing the new military doctrines that would make human forces unbeatable in conventional warfare. The Human Defense Corps had been transformed from a traditional military into something unprecedented. Individual soldiers were enhanced with architect biotechnology that made them faster, stronger, and smarter than any known species. Their equipment was equally revolutionary. Personal armor that could deflect energy weapons that would destroy starships. Weapons that could adjust their power from stunning a single target to leveling entire buildings. Communication systems that allowed perfect coordination across galactic distances. "We're not training soldiers anymore," Frank explained to his officers. "We're creating guardians who can protect humanity from any threat the universe might throw at us." The integration of multiple alien species into human colonies had proceeded more smoothly than anyone had expected. Refugees from Council space had been arriving steadily as word spread about human colonies that welcomed all species based on merit rather than biology. The old Council's rigid hierarchy system was being replaced by something far more flexible and fair. Captain Julie Harris completed another test of the quantum fleet's capabilities by leading a squadron to the edge of Council space and back in less than an hour. The journey covered thousands of light years that would have taken the Council's fastest ship several months to traverse. The implications for both warfare and peaceful exploration were revolutionary. "We could have ships patrolling the entire galaxy simultaneously," she reported to Admiral Cooper. "No threat could organize against us because we could respond faster than they could communicate." But the most significant change was in humanity's collective psychology. The species that had been dismissed as too aggressive and unpredictable had learned to channel their energy into building rather than destroying. The exile had taught them the value of cooperation and long-term planning. They were becoming something the galaxy had never seen before, a civilization that combined overwhelming power with genuine wisdom. Jake Morrison established diplomatic protocols for the inevitable contact with Council forces. Humanity would not hide forever, and when they revealed themselves, it must be from a position of absolute strength. The species that had been banished as dangerous outcasts would return as the galaxy's new rulers. "When we speak to the Council again," Jake told his staff, "they will listen not because they want to, but because they have no choice. Respect comes from strength, and we will have strength beyond their ability to challenge." The time for hiding was almost over. Soon, humanity would emerge from the shadows of exile to reclaim their place in galactic civilization. But this time, they would not be asking for permission or begging for acceptance. They would be announcing their arrival as the galaxy's new dominant power, armed with technology and wisdom that would reshape the universe itself. The Council's greatest mistake was about to become they. The human fleet materialized out of nowhere like a nightmare made real. One moment, the space around Nexus Prime was empty except for the usual patrol ships and merchant vessels. The next moment, thousands of sleek human warships filled the void around the Council's capital world. Their hulls gleamed with strange patterns that seemed to shift and move when viewed directly. "Admiral." Ben Cooper stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the Council's defensive fleet scramble to respond to the sudden appearance of the human armada. Their movements were clumsy and panicked. Alarm signals filled every communication frequency as Council commanders tried to understand how such a massive force had appeared without any warning from their sensor networks. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 Council vessels," reported Communications Officer Sam Torres. "They're asking for terms before we even fire a shot." Ben smiled grimly. The psychological impact of the quantum fleet's instant arrival was even greater than he had hoped. The Council's military commanders had built their entire defensive strategy around the assumption that enemy fleets would take weeks or months to reach their targets. The idea that humanity could strike anywhere in the galaxy within minutes had shattered their confidence completely. Similar scenes were playing out simultaneously around 11 other major Council worlds. Human fleets had appeared in orbit around the Zephyrian homeworld, the Threnody crystal cities, the Corthan hive complexes, and every other significant military installation in Council space. It was the largest coordinated military operation in galactic history, and it had been executed with perfect precision. Jake Morrison, now bearing the title of Supreme Ambassador of the Human Empire, prepared to address the Council from the main conference chamber of Nexus Prime. He wore a simple black uniform that somehow made him look more intimidating than any elaborate costume could have achieved. Behind him stood an honor guard of Human Defense Corps soldiers, whose enhanced physiques and advanced equipment made them look like gods of war. The Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species shouted at each other in languages that their translation systems could barely keep up with. Some demanded immediate military action against the human fleet. Others called for negotiation and peaceful resolution. A few had already begun drafting surrender documents. High Counselor Vexitar tried desperately to restore order to the proceedings. His yellow eyes darted nervously between the view screens showing human ships in orbit and the assembled representatives who looked ready to tear each other apart. The careful political alliances that had held the Council together for thousands of years were crumbling under the pressure of humanity's return. The humans have committed an act of war against every civilized species in the galaxy, Vexitar declared, his voice carrying across the chamber through amplification systems. We must respond with united military action before they can consolidate their positions. Jake Morrison stepped forward to the central speaking platform, and the chamber fell silent. His presence alone was enough to command attention, but the knowledge that human warships hung in orbit above their heads made every word he spoke carry the weight of absolute authority. High Counselor Vexitar, distinguished representatives, I bring greetings from the human empire, and an offer you cannot afford to refuse. Jake's voice was calm and confident, showing no trace of the fear or desperation that had marked his last appearance in this chamber. 2 years ago, you banished humanity from civilized space because you claimed we were too dangerous to coexist with your peaceful species. Today I return to inform you that your fears were completely justified. The silence in the chamber was so complete that the hum of air recycling systems seemed loud. Jake continued his speech with the measured pace of someone who held all the cards and knew it. During our exile, humanity has discovered technologies that make your greatest achievements look like primitive cave paintings. We have solved problems that your species considered impossible. We have built weapons that can destroy fleets with single shots and defenses that can protect entire star systems. Most importantly, we have learned that strength is the only language the galaxy truly understands. Captain Lisa Bradley watched the proceedings from her command position aboard the massive dreadnought Sovereign Will. Her ship alone carried more firepower than the entire Council defense fleet, and every Council military commander knew it. The demonstration of human technological superiority was about to begin. High Counselor, your military leaders are probably wondering how our ships arrived without detection, Jake said, gesturing toward the view screens. Allow me to provide a demonstration. At his signal, Captain Lisa activated the Sovereign Will's primary weapon system. The massive ship's hull reconfigured itself as quantum energy collectors emerged from hidden compartments. A beam of pure force lanced out across space and struck the Council's most powerful battlecruiser, the Zephyrian vessel Pride of the Empire. The enemy ship simply ceased to exist, vaporized so completely that not even debris remained. The effect on the Council chamber was immediate and devastating. Representatives who had been calling for war moments earlier suddenly found themselves very interested in peaceful negotiation. The destruction of their most advanced warship in a single shot had made the futility of military resistance painfully clear. That weapon was set to minimum power, Jake announced calmly. At full strength, it could destroy this entire planet in seconds. But humanity did not return to the galaxy as conquerors. We came back as liberators. Commander Rick Hayes had spent months preparing the intelligence reports that would support Jake's next revelation. Documents detailing Council corruption, evidence of suppressed technologies, and most damning of all, proof that the Council leadership had known about approaching extragalactic threats for decades without warning member species. The Council has failed in its primary responsibility to protect the species under its authority, Jake continued, as holographic displays showed the evidence throughout the chamber. Your leaders have hidden technological advances that could have improved billions of lives. They have suppressed information about cosmic threats that could destroy our entire galaxy. They have maintained power through fear and ignorance rather than leadership and wisdom. The revelation struck the assembled representatives like physical blows. Species that had trusted the Council's leadership for generations suddenly saw evidence of betrayal and incompetence stretching back centuries. The careful political structure that had held the galaxy together began collapsing as allies turned against each other, and long-suppressed resentments boiled to the surface. Dr. Amy Peterson's research had provided humanity with detailed analyses of every Council species' technological capabilities and social structures. This knowledge allowed Jake to offer something that no conqueror in galactic history had ever provided: genuine partnership rather than subjugation. The Human Empire offers membership to any species willing to abandon the Council's failed system, Jake announced. We do not seek subjects or vassals. We seek partners who can contribute to building a better future for all intelligent life. In return, we offer access to technologies that will transform your civilizations and protection from threats that the Council cannot even comprehend. The first species to respond was the Threnody Crystal Collective. Their representative, a being whose crystalline body rang like a bell when she spoke, stepped forward to address the chamber. The Threnody formally requested admission to the Human Empire. We have seen the futility of resistance and the benefits of cooperation. Her words triggered a cascade of similar declarations. The Corthan Collective announced their desire to join humanity. 3 different species from the Outer Rim regions declared their independence from the Council and their allegiance to the Human Empire. Even some Zephyrian colony worlds rebelled against their homeworld government and requested human protection. High Counselor, Vextar watched his carefully constructed political alliance disintegrate before his eyes. Species that had been loyal council members for thousands of years were abandoning ship as quickly as they could process the membership applications. The fear in his yellow eyes was visible to everyone in the chamber. You cannot simply dissolve the Galactic Confederation, he protested weakly. The Council has maintained peace and stability for millennia. Without our guidance, the galaxy will descend into chaos and warfare. Jake Morrison's smile was cold and final. High Counselor, the Council's time is over. You have 72 hours to transfer all governmental functions to Human Empire administrators. Any attempt to resist this transition will be met with the full force of humanity's military capabilities. The galaxy has a new government now, one that rules through strength and wisdom rather than fear and corruption. President Tony Martinez received reports from across Council space, showing the same pattern repeating everywhere. Alien species were abandoning the Council system faster than their bureaucrats could process the paperwork. The promise of advanced technology and genuine equality was proving irresistible to civilizations that had been held back by the Council's rigid hierarchy for generations. General Frank Davis coordinated the peaceful occupation of key strategic points throughout Council space. Human forces. 5 years had passed since the Council's fall, and the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. Emperor Tony Martinez stood on the observation deck of the Imperial Palace on New Terra, watching ships from hundreds of different species arrive for the annual Unity Festival. The magnificent capital world had been built using architect technology to showcase the best of every civilization that had joined the Human Empire. Crystal spires from Threnody architects reached toward the sky beside flowing organic structures designed by the plant-like Verdani. Geometric Corthan buildings stood next to elegant human towers, all connected by transportation networks that moved citizens seamlessly between districts. The old Council's rigid separation between species had been replaced by integration and cooperation that created something beautiful and new. The Human Empire now encompassed over 300 star systems and included 67 different intelligent species as full citizens rather than subjects. The merit-based system that had replaced the Council's species hierarchy was working better than even humanity's most optimistic leaders had dared to hope. Alien beings served as governors, military commanders, and research directors, based on their abilities rather than their biology. Admiral Ben Cooper commanded the Imperial Navy from the massive space station orbiting New Terra. His fleet had grown to include ships built with the combined knowledge of dozens of species, each vessel incorporating the best ideas from multiple civilizations. The quantum fleet could now deploy anywhere in the galaxy within minutes, and its very existence had eliminated the border conflicts that had plagued the old Council for centuries. Admiral, we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim patrol fleets, said his aide, Commander Patricia Wells, a young officer whose rapid promotion demonstrated the Empire's commitment to advancing talent regardless of age or background. All sectors are reporting peaceful conditions. Trade routes are operating at maximum efficiency. Ben nodded with satisfaction. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Piracy had been virtually eliminated by the Imperial Navy's ability to respond instantly to any threat. The trade wars between species that had cost billions of lives under the Council system were now distant memories. Peace had become profitable, and profit encouraged more peace. General Frank Davis reviewed intelligence reports from across the galaxy in his office deep within the Imperial Defense Complex. The integration of alien species into the Imperial Defense Corps had created military units whose capabilities exceeded anything the Old Council could have imagined. Threnody crystal beings provided perfect communication networks. Corthan hive minds offered unparalleled coordination abilities. Human tactical innovation bound everything together into an unstoppable force. General, the border monitoring stations have detected something unusual, reported Colonel Janet Miller, head of the Empire's early warning systems. Long-range sensors are picking up gravitational disturbances beyond the galactic rim. The patterns match some of the warnings we found in the Architect databases. Frank felt a cold chill run down his spine. The Architect records had mentioned threats from beyond the galaxy, cosmic entities that consumed entire civilizations before moving on to new hunting grounds. The ancient builders had fled rather than fight these creatures, but humanity had spent years preparing for this possibility. Alert Emperor Martinez and convene the War Council immediately. If the extragalactic invaders are finally arriving, we need to be ready. Dr. Amy Peterson had continued her research into Architect technology throughout the Empire's expansion, and her discoveries had revolutionized life for every species under human protection. Medical advances had extended lifespans across the board, while improving quality of life dramatically. Manufacturing systems could create anything needed by any species, eliminating scarcity and want throughout the Empire. Her latest breakthrough had been the most significant yet: defensive shields that could protect entire star systems from almost any attack. The technology required massive amounts of coordinated energy, but the Empire's integrated power networks made galaxy-wide projects possible for the first time in history. Amy, we need those system shields operational immediately, Emperor Martinez told her during an emergency meeting of the Imperial Council. If the intelligence reports are accurate, we're facing a threat that destroyed civilizations far more advanced than the Old Council ever was. The approaching enemy revealed itself gradually over several weeks. Massive ships that dwarfed anything built by galactic civilizations emerged from the darkness between galaxies like a plague of metal locusts. Their technology was different from anything in the Architect databases. Based on consuming and converting rather than building and creating, the invaders called themselves the Devourers, and their purpose was simple. They traveled from galaxy to galaxy, consuming all organic life and converting it into resources for their ever-growing fleet. They had destroyed countless civilizations across the universe, and they viewed the Milky Way as nothing more than their next meal. Jake Morrison, now serving as the Empire's supreme diplomatic commander, attempted to establish communication with the invading force. The response he received chilled him to the bone. The Devourers had no interest in negotiation or coexistence. They saw all organic life as raw material to be processed and converted. Surrender was not an option they would accept because they intended to consume every living being in the galaxy. They're not invaders in any traditional sense, Jake reported to the War Council. They're more like a natural disaster with intelligence. They don't want to rule us or enslave us. They want to eat us. The first battles began at the galaxy's edge, where Imperial patrol fleets encountered Devourer scout ships. The engagements revealed both encouraging and terrifying information. Human ships enhanced with Architect technology could destroy individual Devourer vessels. But the enemy's numbers seemed endless. For every ship destroyed, 10 more emerged from the darkness. Captain Lisa Bradley led the Imperial fleet's first major engagement against the Devourer main force near the Centauri cluster. Her battle group included ships from 20 different species, all working together with the precision that had made the Imperial Navy legendary. The combined fleet's firepower was devastating, but the enemy kept coming in waves that seemed to have no end. All ships focus fire on their command vessels, Lisa ordered over the tactical network. If we can disrupt their coordination, we might be able to break their formation. The battle raged for 3 days across multiple star systems. Imperial ships used their quantum mobility to strike from unexpected angles, while system shields protected civilian populations from the worst of the fighting. Slowly, painfully, the human-led forces began to gain the upper hand through superior tactics and technology. Emperor Martinez coordinated the galaxy-wide defense from New Terra's command center, watching real-time reports from hundreds of battle zones simultaneously. The Architect communication networks allowed him to direct forces across the entire galaxy, as if they were all in the same system. It was the largest military operation in cosmic history. "The Devourers are learning from our tactics," reported General Davis during one of their strategic briefings. "They adapt quickly to our attack patterns. We need to keep innovating faster than they can evolve." Dr. Amy Peterson provided the breakthrough that turned the tide of the war. Deep in the Architect databases, she found references to the Devourers' weakness: their dependence on a central hive mind that coordinated their entire species across galactic distances. If that coordination could be disrupted, their massive fleets would become confused and vulnerable. The final battle took place in the void between galaxies, where Admiral Cooper led a strike force directly at the Devourer home ships. The mission was essentially suicide, requiring the fleet to travel beyond the galaxy's protective barriers and engage an enemy force that outnumbered them by millions to one. But the Imperial fleet was not fighting alone. Representatives from every species in the Empire volunteered for the mission, turning it into a true galactic coalition. Threnody crystal ships provided communications. Corthan vessels offered hive mind coordination. Human quantum technology made the impossible journey feasible. Together, they achieved what no single species could have accomplished. The destruction of the Devourer hive mind sent shockwaves through their entire civilization. Without central coordination, their fleets became disorganized and began attacking each other. The threat that had consumed countless galaxies was defeated by the unity and cooperation that the human empire had fostered. As Jake Morrison addressed the Imperial Senate after the victory, he reflected on the incredible journey that had brought humanity from exile to galactic leadership. The species that the Council had deemed too dangerous for civilized space had proven to be exactly what the galaxy needed to survive its greatest challenge. 5 years ago, we were banished from this galaxy because they said we were too aggressive and unpredictable, Jake told the assembled representatives from dozens of worlds. Today, that same aggression and unpredictability saved every living being in known space. The Council was wrong about humanity, and they were wrong about what the galaxy needed to thrive. The human empire continued to grow and evolve, spreading beyond the mill,